Let's begin this morning with those new details from the vice president after wrapping up high-level talks with Iran. J.D. Vance spoke this morning and listed a number of areas where he says progress has been made. He even claimed that Iran would allow UN nuclear inspectors into the country as early as this week. The vice president added that while his negotiations may be over, there is much work that remains.
We laid a very good foundation for a successful final deal. The final deal is the house. We set the foundation. We haven't built the house, but we've laid a successful foundation to get to a good place for the American people. I think it's important for all of us to appreciate how much was done, but honestly, there is still a lot to do as we continue to make progress on the nuclear talks, on the economic talks, as we continue to demine the straits and ensure that that flow of traffic continues to pick back up. A lot of progress, but still some work to do.
All right, it comes as new CBS News polling shows that more than 2/3 of Americans want the war with Iran to end right now. 22% say the conflict should continue until Tehran gives up more. Let's bring in CBS News White House reporter Aaron Navarro. Aaron, the vice president's language is sort of squishy. Foundation, but the House comes next. I mean, yeah, we get it. Like, they're talking, right? But at the end of the day, this memorandum was supposed to end this war. It was supposed to be a ceasefire. What's happening? What's the president actually saying about these talks? Ultimately, he's the decider in chief.
Yeah, that's right, Vlad. Yeah, the Memorandum of Understanding sets these next 60 days, this window, to negotiate and reach a final peace deal. And while the vice president, as you mentioned, talked about the foundation and lots of progress being made, it was the president's own words about all of this yesterday that really threatened to derail these negotiations at all. In a phone call with Fox News, he said that if Iran tries to close the Strait of Hormuz, which they threatened to do so after Israel continued their strikes on southern Lebanon, the president said they won't have a country and even suggested that Iran's delegation in Switzerland may not even make it back to their home country. He said that the U.S. would be taking over the strait, would institute its own tolls, and would launch more strikes on Iran. All of that led to Iran's delegations, its negotiators in Switzerland, threatening to leave just hours into the talks beginning in Switzerland on Sunday. The vice president said today that did not happen and that they stuck around for the nearly 18 hours of talks there in Switzerland. Vance also had language in his press conference that said Iran was, quote, whining and making threats, but then pointed to them sticking around regardless for continued talks.
So, Aaron, what happens now? I mean, are these high-level talks officially over? You know, I'm sure there's a lot more to iron out. Are there others that are left there to work on further details?
Yeah, there are technical teams that will remain in Switzerland to work out the nitty-gritty when it comes to Iran's nuclear enrichment, when it comes to the mechanisms of the financial relief that Iran could receive, such as the lifting of U.S. sanctions, the unfreezing of their assets. But both the U.S. and Iranian delegations, in terms of the vice president and other high-level officials, are heading home. So it'll be up to the work of the technical officials now on the ground to reach further details in the deal that will prompt other high-level officials to come back and potentially sign a final peace deal. But as the vice president said, there still remains a lot of work to do.
A lot of work, and 60 days will be over before we know it. Aaron Navarro, thank you so much. Let's now bring in CBS News contributor Courtney Kealy. So, Courtney, these negotiators will have to solve, I mean, complex doesn't even really put it well, these really huge issues over the next 60 days with, as Vlad was mentioning before, you never know what happens on Twitter or X that might derail things. So what are the concerns and how large are the concerns that we may not even reach a final agreement within the 60 days?
Well, Adriana, let me put it this way. There's a video circulating on X, and it's Abbas Araghchi, the Iranian foreign minister. He's speaking to the Pakistani field marshal who's been part of the negotiations, and then the prime minister kind of motions him. And as soon as he realizes how big the media press pool is, that they wanted this joint handshake and joint on camera, he kind of skirts right out of the view. And then you see J.D. Vance come in on the right, kind of looking, saying what's happened. The Iranian foreign minister did not want to be seen shaking hands with the U.S. So we didn't even get that visual. That's how wary they are. Now, in this deal, which isn't really a deal, it's a deal to make a deal. And so you have the waiving of sanctions for now that are opening up billions of dollars that pour into the Iranian economy. But are they going to the people or are they going to the regime? The Iranian Revolutionary Guard, despite all the killings of leaders by Israel and the U.S. at the beginning of the war, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard is right behind Mojtaba Khamenei, the new supreme leader, and has said so, even issuing a picture of him with their symbol right next to him, showing that they're standing as one for the people, for the government, for the negotiators.
So, Courtney,
there's only Yeah.
So what I was going to ask you is, going back to your comments about that image that we all saw, which is, as someone who's covered the Middle East extensively over the course of your career, just from a negotiating standpoint, how disrespectful is it for a group of individuals to behave in the way that they did when it comes to the vice president? In other words, if you have any leverage, the United States should be the partner that enters into the negotiations after all the other parties are seated. I'm just wondering, I'm seeing a lot of diplomats who have experience in diplomatic scenarios suggesting that the United States was belittled by what we saw over the weekend. What's your take on that?
Well, first of all, President Trump was pummeling Iran hard with really intense language all weekend on social media. J.D. Vance, even his remarks this morning, basically spoke about the Iranians as if they were juveniles, teenagers. He did not use language as if they were partners in peace. And then my big bugaboo here is the so-called roadmap. I've been down these roads. I've heard all about these roadmaps. They're talking about roadmaps again. I've never seen one that has an exit strategy or an ending, just dead ends. So while they're putting a framework to this, they're putting a diplomatic room of everyone together or not so much together. That's the Iranian foreign minister not meaning to disrespect the U.S., but also making sure that the hardliners of Iran don't really start a rallying cry against these negotiations if he looks too cozy to the U.S. So it was supposed to be orchestrated. He backed out. You can say that it was disrespectful, but really what is in the agreement? What can they get done? That remains to be seen.
All right, Courtney Kealy for us. Courtney, thank you.